from the different institutions. The first speaker today is Rogerio Studart, and he is former executive director at the World Bank and the Inter-American Development Bank, and now a senior advisor and a researcher with extensive experiences in climate finance, sustainable development, and international economic policy. And Rogerio, thanks for your participation, and go ahead with the intervention.
Thank you, and thank you for the invitation. Thank you, Mr. Fernando, FAJ, and Rafael, for all the organizers. It is, I could, as I said, I'm on vacation, but I could not refuse to be at my alma mater, particularly in an issue that is considered to be extremely interesting and important nowadays. Now, do you have my presentation there?
No.
I just sent
no, sorry, I have to.
I have
okay.
No, just hold on.
I can share my presentation over here.
Just to allow. I have just to allow. Okay, you can do it, please.
Oh, you want me to share it from here? Okay. Let me see.
Try again, please.
Let me, sorry.
Let me see.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Put the...
Okay.
No, it's not entered. Oh, yeah, it's entered, entered. No, it's entered.
we see.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you see the presentation?
Yes.
That's great. Thank you.
Okay. What can you see the first slide?
Yes.
Okay, good. So I'm sorry for taking 1.5 minutes of my 50 minutes into this, but that's
Excuse me.
That's good.
Maybe
I want.
can you move to the presentation way?
Try to maximize.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. That's great.
Can you see now?
No.
Okay, let me try again. Send the presentation to Rafa. I don't know if you can see it. There, share. Okay, let me try to share it now. See if you can see now.
Just black now.
Can you see now?
No.
Okay, that's great. That's
Yeah.
great. Definitely great.
Yeah.
Okay, you see. Okay.
Yeah, I see.
So I don't know. Well, first of all, again, thank you very much, and it's wonderful to be back at my alma mater and particularly talking to you. I was, for some of you who know me, know that I've been working on development finance and for 35 years, and particularly PhD dissertation. All development banks can be critical in financing development. And then I evolved very recently, the past 15 years, I've been working on the issue of climate finance because I think it is a critical issue for development itself, how we address the climate emergency. But having said that, I've been writing quite a lot with many colleagues that are there about the role of development banks. And I don't think there are we have already many findings about it. I don't want to repeat them, but I want to address 3 issues that I think I don't say it's a work in progress, it's a thought in progress that I want to share with you that I think could be helpful to understand why development bank have become so prominent in the discussions of climate finance. Let me see if I can. Okay, let's, I apologize for the way this is set up, but this is more or less what I think it is, the evolution of thinking on climate finance in the past 15 years or so. It's very recently, but very clearly there has been changes. I think that the initial belief that most of the people had, basically guided by a very mainstream view of issues, is that international flows would be sufficient to meet climate financial needs in developing countries, and that carbon prices would be the correction mechanism for individual behaviors within borders. Clearly, this idea has been fading by the mere fact that international flows to climate have been increasing very, very, very slowly. I would say in a almost highly disappointing way. So there was a turn to the idea that it's not public finance; it's got to be private finance. And then the idea of private finance is that private finance was going to shift in ways because of the increase of climate risk. But you need a little help in terms of regulations, of creating carbon markets, but also creating mechanisms for risk mitigation. And I want to emphasize risk, because this is an issue that I'm going to address. Of course, private financing, and you see that has not taken off as much as people thought it would be. So we moved to the idea that it's not international finance, but domestic mobilization of resources. And the focus were shifting from bilateral finance to multilateral development banks having a more prominent role in helping domestic mobilization. Of course, this has been very slow. And then very recently, people rediscovered development banks, particularly national development banks, and say, well, let's look at what I'm doing. And they found out, first of all, that there's a significant number of development banks, public and national development banks, that have been already working on financing transitions. And that has been actually leading not only development, but national public banks, not only in developing countries, but surprisingly in very developed countries. This is something that we had observed before, even before this discussion of climate finance. National development banks have been critical in financing, in helping both directly financing transformations and helping to crowd in private capital to transformation. Then, and I'm going to shift this very quickly.
Mira que sí tiene.
Okay, sorry about that. Let's resume the presentation. So I was saying that this is a perspective more for the more local regional bank. Just a little bit about the Central American Bank for Economic Integration. We have several countries for the SICA region, Central American region, including Mexico, also Colombia and Argentina, and Dominican Republic. But also we have extra regional partners like Korea, Republic of China, Taiwan, Spain, that also support the bank and members of the country. We have a AA rating, credit rating. It's a strong credit rating for the Central American Bank. Also, our purpose to create opportunities to elevate the quality of life for everyone in the region. We have three strategic pillars: transparency, positive impact, and operational excellence. And also we have a lot of experience aligning our operation with the Paris Agreement, but also mobilizing resources through green and blue bonds emission, Green Climate Fund. We have access to the Green Climate Fund. Also, we have been able to mobilize quite a few projects in the Latin American region with the Green Climate Fund, also with the Adaptation Fund, but also we create a specific fund, the Climate Change Fund from CABEI, which provide resources to project preparation mostly. A little bit of context. Just I'm not going to repeat many of the things that were said yesterday, but just I think Rogerio was also about to show this about how the climate finance is increasingly in this three region, which is East Asia because of China, also in the East Europe and US and Canada. They have mostly concentrated the climate finance, but this explained because of the size of the countries. And if you see that, it's mostly domestic investment rather than international. If we look at Latin America, we still have more domestic investment than international. So we are not getting that international flow that we want. But also it's mostly private, so that's very important. Most of the financing is private, it's not public. Most of the private is a lot of the private is the people and the household, a little bit more of the commercial financial institution and also the corporation. So that's very interesting. And if we look at how is this. Both is in the private part is just debt and equity, and the public it's more diverse, and we have more debt. Of course, we have most of the capital is debt, but also we have a little bit equity. But we have this around 20% that we call grants and concessional money. So we only the 20% of that share is concessional, so that's very important because we were discussing yesterday how to increase those financial flow, but the reality is that we are only getting the 20% of the promise that we get that we will have more concessional funding for the global south, for example. Also, there is an imbalance in the financing. Of course, we mentioned yesterday, we have a lot of needs in adaptation and mitigation, but the flows are very low. And also we have more investment in mitigation. That's a reality. And if we look at the SICA region, the Central American region, also there is a great imbalance there, and it's related with the capacities of the countries to mobilize resources. For example, Costa Rica, which has more experience mobilizing resources, has been able to get around 300 million from the global funds, but other countries doesn't have that capacities, so they have less and less experience getting the funds from these global entities. So the conclusion here is that looking at our region is that there are several sources of financing that can provide significant amounts of money. The GCF, the Global Environmental Fund, the Adaptation Fund are the ones to continue to be the biggest fund in the region. But there is no balance there because it's related with the capacities of the country to submit good proposals and to get the money for them. Just an overview of these global climate funds. The GEF and the Adaptation Fund are more related with adaptation, is more related with climate adaptation, but the GEF is more related with the environment. But the amounts that they can provide, or they have been providing, is not too high. It's, for example, the GEF 10 to 15 million, Adaptation Fund 2 to 10 million. So also you cannot do a project that transform the system with that. But for example, the GCF, they can provide larger funding, more than 100 million. But there are a lot of challenge, especially everyone knows that the loan process to get the resources. We can spend like 2 or 3 years preparing a project to submit, for example, to the GCF. There are technical requirements that honestly are very hard to comply. You have to do several studies and several parts, and the transaction cost is super high, and also you can go all the way past all the technical criteria, but then you get to the board and you're not sure you're going to get approved. So it's a little bit risky. But also conditions from the GCF could be good. That's the reality of the concessional fund. Maybe 40 years, 0% rate. So that's worth going through the process. But the issue is the main issue is that in our countries, specifically talking about the Central America, the governments are not very good in planning. So you don't, you need to have the projects right away because you have a 4 year, 5 years period for a president, for example. So they need the projects right there because when they change government, they might change the priorities. So it's very hard to spend 2 or 3 years preparing a project that maybe it will be a priority for the next government. So the thing is that there are funding here you could access, but it's still not agile enough to respond to the needs of these regions, right? Because of our planning, because our characteristics. So that's very important because the global funds that are the ones called for providing this sustainable funding, they are not responding very well to the reality and the context that we have. If we were more strong planning, it's feasible to have a good planning, but that's not the reality. So it's a challenge for that, for us as a multilateral bank also to mobilize those resources and bring it to the government. So just to finalize, like the context, the context, you know, high climate vulnerability of the region, we know that. We have a lot of barriers accessing to the climate finance, but also the last point that I want to emphasize that we have a limited portfolio of bankable climate projects aligned with international standard. And that's why, that's the first role I want to share with you of the multilateral banks, as for example, CABE. It's in the preparation of projects and developing of framework and technical standard that comply with these international requirements. That's one thing. we often go speak with governments and with stakeholders, and everyone is demanding funding, right? Everyone is saying like, where is the green, the sustainable finance? But the reality, when you get the finance from maybe a donor, maybe another bilateral bank, European Union, whatever, when you get the funding, there are not projects prepared to present. They don't have a pipeline. They say they want sector to be supported, but there is no pipeline there that comply with this high requirement that they have. So one of the roles in the, for example, Central American region is to develop projects that with the early stage we integrate high-level criteria to ensure that we can comply with the requirement for the highest level of donor, like European Union, GCF, KfW, GEF, etc. So when we start, and we have invested a lot of non-reimbursable money to support the countries to study those projects and get that pipeline ready. So we ensure that pipeline is aligned with sustainable standards, and thus we have approval rates increase there with international funding, and we reduce the time and the cost of the project ultimately. So that's one role that's very important that we see in governments. Maybe there are governments with higher capacity. For example, Colombia, for example, is part of the bank. So maybe governments with that capacity can present good projects there. So our role is more just to serve up a creative entity or to get resources with concessional resources. But with other types of government that has less capacity, our role is from the start to identify the project, study the project, and make sure that project fulfill the requirement from these international donors. Another role that's very important we have been supporting is creating this enabling environment for the transition, especially focus on national policies. Public policy is super important to bring private and public capital to make the transformation that we need to support all the sectors. So also we promote a lot alignment between the national policies and the national commitment with the Paris Agreement, BCIE, the Global Biodiversity Framework. Also, the capacities as we speak, as we were mentioning in the previous slide, also we support with technical cooperation to elevate the capacities of the ministry, of the governments, to prepare projects, to identify projects. And it's super hard because also it's related with the model that, for example, you have several banks preparing a lot of ministries, a lot of good people there, but you spend maybe 1 or 2 years preparing several functionaries for the government. But the next year they won't be there. They won't be there, so you have to start from zero again. So in this government, you cannot keep the capacity like there. It always go up at the middle of the government, then goes down. So that's why it's difficult to plan and to identify projects. So we keep investing in trying to improve those areas and the capacity of the people. So hopefully we can mobilize more resources for them. Also, the other role is in execution. Of course, the multilateral bank has more strong framework to the follow-up of the projects and to ensure that the objectives of the project are fulfilled. So we support also the governments in the execution more to make sure that they fulfill with the requirements that we put on the table and to present, for example, the donor, also to make sure to integrate a measure of social inclusion, gender equality, and also the protection of the vulnerable communities. and all the monitoring. So in this way, when we go back to the international donors that provide the finance, we can guarantee that the benefits of to integrate the sustainability are there. We can show the results, so that enables to get more resources in the future. And also, of course, we avoid negative impact. We try to avoid negative impact from the projects that we finance. The last role, I think, is the most important for us, is to mobilize the capital and to create new instruments. I think we have much to do still to identify innovative financial operation instrument, to channel resources, and I don't want to get too much into that, because there are a lot of final instruments there. But one thing that looking at the presentation yesterday, it's very important to understand where is the concessional money, right? Where is the concessional money to provide to the governments? And it's not precisely in the multilateral banks, because the bank cannot create a lot of money. I mean, the bank has earning that uses mostly to support cooperation, to development studies, but the real amount of money required to finance the big projects has to come with the promise of that the developed country will provide that money, because it has to be concessional, because we can provide financing to normal rates, but that's not enough to cover, for example, the incremental cost of adaptation or mitigation. So we are not getting the flows of money that are being promised in the Paris Agreement, and those flows are coming through, for example, the GCF, which is super hard to get those resources. So it's important for us. We advocate to get more sources of concessional capital to really can translate that to the countries, so they can improve the implementation and they can cover more sectors. Because at the moment, as you presented yesterday, there is not enough. And it's important for us to identify who is called to provide those funding. It could be through the multilateral banks, but also it could be through other channels. But the reality is, what is that concessional resources to provide the countries? Maybe just a quick example of those roles turning into action. For example, the bank looking at these needs of the countries to have this portfolio, create the FCC, which is the climate change investment project preparation from CABEI. All the region is included there. It can be beneficiary, especially we target designate national authorities, but also we can provide non-reimbursable funding for public and private sector, and also NGOs, for example. We have several donors there. We have the European Union. We have been able to get the resources also with the KfW, the Spanish cooperation, of course, or our own resources from CABEI. We have a lot of $17 million for project preparation. And this is we did a request for proposal. This is an example how we start preparing pipelines. For example, we use the instrument like request for proposal, and in that occasion we got, for example, 20 proposals from 7 countries of the region. And the content winner was a proposal presented by the Minister of Environment of Honduras to develop a program of sustainable recovery of Lake Yohoa in Honduras, and then we developed all the studies with the high standard requirement, And we consider all the dimensions: biodiversity, circular economy, sustainability, the social dimension, climate change approach, government transparency, etc. And because we did all the studies with those requirements, then we were able to get the resources from the Global Gateway, for example, or from the Green Recovery Program, resources from KfW, and also we are about to issue a blue bond about that. And also, we might get resources with one of the global chemists. So that's an example where it's super important from the start of the project, the genesis of the project, to integrate all these requirements there. So then you have a big umbrella of access to this climate finance. So just some conclusion on that. It's super important as developing man to have this cooperation with this international financial institution, because we need to, that's our role to get resources, but every day is harder. Also, it's important that the banks support the countries with resources to prepare projects. This is the last one. And also we have find that this model to close the cycle until approval, it's working very well, and that's why we're investing more and more to support projects from the start, not just receive a project from the government and then try to transform those projects. It's not as easy as it's super costly, and also it takes more time, and maybe just a final conclusion. It's I think it's important, if we're going to the COP again as the Global South. I know we say this a lot, but we are receiving the effects of the climate change, and we are not generating most of the emission. So it's important to make them to fulfill the promise or more financial flow, right? Because it's not flowing, the money is not coming, and it's concentrated in these global funds, which has become, I would say, like an elite, because not every consultant also can prepare proposal for those funding, and so there is not much sources of resources that you can go and get concessional funding. And if you don't have concessional funding, you have regular funding, which is expensive, and you cannot cover too much of the project that are needed. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Eduardo. Maybe try again.
Yeah.
With the Rogerio.
Hi, Rogerio. Can you hear me?
Estou te ouvindo.
we are, okay,
Vocês estão escutando?
yes,
Okay. So I have to be very brief. I apologize for that because I have to leave.
It's not your fault.
But let me just get to the point here that I was trying to make. Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay.
Sure.
So I was saying to you that this is what has been the evolution of the thinking on climate finance, and it's kind of moving forwards as things did not work the way we thought. And can you see the presentation?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So, but when you look at the numbers seem to be interesting. They seem to be the volume seems to be significant, and they're only 2021. And I have the numbers for 2023, but I didn't put them here. But you have reached $1.3 trillion in climate finance around the world, and this is the climate policy initiative showing the numbers. And when you look at the overall picture, it's quite misleading in what that represents. Let me start with the private versus public. When you look at private finance, mostly when you see corporations and households, you have corporations basically, we're talking about financing energy transition, which is quite plain vanilla investments nowadays, given that the knowledge and the technology are well known and less expensive than they used to be. When you look at households, you're basically talking about retrofitting of buildings and buying electrical vehicles. And when you look at commercial financial institutions, private banks, basically you look at financing either short-term capital for energy transition or energy transition together with blended finance with public institutions. So what I'm trying to say is that, first of all, the impression that you have 50% private and public is misleading. It's basically when you look at the public finance, you see what the bulk of the finance of transformation investment is. And when you look for insight, you see national developed banks, you see multilateral banks, state-owned companies, and you can see clearly the role of public banks, but also public money. But even within that, there are three stories that should be told. I'm going to look very briefly on that. One is the United States, when the Biden administration tried to push, and they have been successful, the Inflation Reduction Act. And the finance comes from two sources. One, one is budget financing. Is basically the treasury financing investments. It's what we would call monetary financing, because they have the privilege, the exorbitant privilege of issuing dollars, so they can finance that kind of things from the budget themselves. They've been doing that for years. The second, and in the U.S., also development or the public institutions, public finance institutions have been playing a significant role in that. I don't want you to discuss the details about the numbers, but I just want you to tell you that this is a story. This is the story of a specific institutional arrangement. The EU has used there are two stories there. One is the story of national development banks like the National Development Bank of Germany, KfW, which has been very prominent in financing the most advanced technology issues when it comes to, the end of the line, most complex investments. And then you have the carbon market. The carbon market in the European Union is not a market. Basically, the government is taxing companies up, to make it very short, beyond some emissions. They sell the allowance, they obtain the resources, and they put in decarbonization funds. And the EU redistributes that throughout the EU members. So this is another story that tells you a little bit the leadership of the public finance institutions and the arrangements in that. And finally, you have China. China cannot, I mean, it's a very peculiar case in so many ways. Because in China, you have basically an integration of finance from the central bank to the government banks, to the state-owned companies, to municipal agents, all that integrated so that you do not have a problem of mobilization of resources. You basically do the mobilization through a system which is a system of command, and that it is integrated into what we could call, in broader sense, a green industrial policy. So those are the three stories behind that. That is, if you look at the picture, you have a completely misleading, and I see that being repeated a lot, a misleading picture that private and public funding, have been sharing the same thing, but sharing it have been equal partners in that. But the truth is, this is not the stories that have been more significant. So what do we know now? And I have been writing about this, most of you have been following this, but let me tell you what we know about these numbers now. First, private finance growth has been significant. The distribution has been very unequal, both within countries. Most developed countries are getting nowhere with private finance. Most of the flows are in industrial countries and in China. It's an equal distribution between mitigation and adaptation. Only 2% of the flows have been going to adaptation, basically from public design institutions. The mobilization has been domestic. International flows have been minor in relation to what has been mobilized for that. Private finance has been concentrated in energy transition and in some significant share of e-mobility, including the financing of acquisition of electric vehicles. Public sector has been prominent beyond plain vanilla. Development banks have had a catalytic role, and this role has been basically done from national development public banks. So, and then I just want to throw to you, and I'm sorry that I wish I could expand a little bit more. What are the three analytical issues that I think help us understand these issues? And it's not just work in progress of mine, it's a thought in progress that I want to share with you. I am, for you that perhaps know me or see my work, post-case, and I've always used post-case perspectives. And I think I'd be wrong in analyzing development finance for years. And I will explain to you. Not completely wrong, but wrong in a fundamental way. And I think that if João Carlos Ferraz, I see him there, is there. He is going to understand, and I think you'll understand what I'm saying. See, I have been using the concept of uncertainty for many years to describe why financing transformation is so difficult. Because there's a lot of uncertainty in investments that are transformational. That is in Keynes, but that is also in Schumpeter, it's in Minsky, in a way, completely different perspective. But basically it's this, I mean, we have uncertainty, and the private sector does not deal well with uncertainty, and it deals well with risk, put it this way, because risk is basically reducing uncertainty. It's reducing uncertainty to probabilistic analysis. Basically say, I'm going to use the past to look at, to project the future. And uncertainty is something that you cannot, you do not have the information necessary to do that projection, or basically you're creating something so new that it causes structural changes. Sorry again to be going fast on that, but this is the idea that I think most of heterodox the simplification literature has played with, but I think they miss one important thing that it relates directly with how public banks are so important in this discussion. It's the issue of complexity. Now, it's not just uncertainty in some cases, and I learned that from talking to studying national development banks. Most of the projects that are involved development, particularly when you're catching up or you create structure changes, involves putting together agents, public and private agents, and spending time to create asset classes that can be used in the existing financial market. So development banks, for instance, what they do is they look at projects that have development impact and transform them into asset classes, and that can take many years, that they put in the balance sheets, and then that creates the returns that they need in order to be financially sustainable. This would be the case in any other financial institutions, except for the fact that development projects are, in order to be put together, they take time, there's a cost of transaction in putting that together. It requires specific knowledge that has to be in-house in order to create the asset class that can lead to structural change. The issue two, climate finance is nothing more than development finance, which is scaled up and has a very large need to accelerate because of climate emergency. And there you have, in all development finance, you have three types of investments that are important. Plain vanilla development investments. When I say plain vanilla, of course, it's take the case of trying to develop a bioeconomy in the Amazon. You have to invest first in the basic infrastructure for mobility, but also in the logistics to get the products in bioeconomy in order from one place to another. Think about developing electromobility in cities. You have to develop new types, not only to obtain different types of technology, which sometimes is not available in developing countries, but you also have to have a very strong logistic distribution of energy. You have to make agreements with the energy providers. You have to create the charging stations. It's not simple. I've been working on that. Just something that you think is simple. It can take years for you to put together. And you can see it all over. Sorry. Green vanilla, and which I say is the investments that you need just to be basic. We're talking about the chargers. You don't have to have chargers in order to have electromobility. This is not an easy issue to address. And in the first case, you probably would say that you have risk involved because you know more or less how this plain vanilla development investments need. In the green finance, green vanilla investments, the complexity is higher, but also you have some technologies that have not been tested for the environment that you have. And then finally, you have the top transformative green investments. For instance, dealing with reforestation agriculture, sustainable agriculture is not something that, even though seems simple, but just to create the seeds necessary for reforestation in some types of biomes is a very complex issue, both in terms of technology and the logistics required. So the second issue is that development finance is already a complex issue to do that needs a specialized type of development institution. Private sector is not equipped with absorbing the transaction costs and also the cost of putting together complexity. Sometimes it cannot even that. That requires making different types of agents coordinate in order to get that result. That's just, for instance, why in China it becomes so obvious how they can jump in terms of resource mobilization because of the capacity that they have to deal with complexity and also to coordinate agents are much more significant. So climate finance is basically development finance, extremely scaled up and also requiring speed. The third issue is that even though inaction is not a collective option, you cannot, as a collective wait, individuals can procrastinate. Look at the insurance companies. Once everybody knows that insurance companies will have to move away from carbon-intensive projects, but they can take their time because basically they can just get out of insuring highly carbon-intensive projects. So it's, even though inaction in a collective sense is urgent, from an individual institutional perspective, it's not. So my conclusions here, and I'll leave that with you because I really have to leave and I apologize for that, is that the issues that we are not addressing properly in order to understand the role of development banks, but also the role of public banks in general. And that leads us to conversations that are meaningless. I'll give an example. We talk about development banks as often as risk mitigators. They're not risk mitigators, just. They're complexity dealing institutions, and they have been rated for that, not only developing countries, but also developers. That brings a completely different perspective of what they do, the importance, and how they should be functioning in times of climate emergency. So, first, we have to look at the issue of risk versus transformative investments, particularly adding complexity. Second, we have to look at the role of transformation investments in economic development and in any stage of development. Third, we have to understand that all countries need to do a structure shift, but developing countries, not only they need, remember the investments at the top of the transformation for climate, but you also need investments that are old, that have been lagging behind. So basic infrastructure, socioeconomic infrastructure, and then you have the green vanilla part, and then you have the very transformative thing. This is an overload, overwhelms the whole system. Fourth, this is an additional challenge for latecomers. So countries like Brazil that have been underinvesting in basic, or what I call green vanilla infrastructure, have a tremendous work to be done, and that's why development banks, must play such a significant role. We have to think about mitigation versus adaptation. Mitigation has become easier, and adaptation is what is really needed in most developing countries, and therefore it's a completely different perspective. And finally, we have to look at the cost of complexity. Without understanding that climate finance is mobilizing resources for complex projects, we cannot understand the challenge that we have ahead. I apologize for for this breakdown and to be very quick on this, but those are the points that I wish to share with you. Again, as I said, it's not just a work in progress, it's a thought in progress. I wish I could stay here to continue this conversation, and I hope that you have my emails if you have any comments about that, and if you want to discuss a little bit, I'd be more than happy to discuss that with you. And I'll stop here. And I see my family here looking at me very, very angrily. So I apologize, and I'll just leave you in 1 minute. Sergio, is that good you all hear?
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Thank you very much, and I wish you all the success in this meeting. And it's very important for me that this is a South-South initiative, because there's no way most of our colleagues in the North understand some of the issues that we're discussing here. Not that they don't have the intellectual capacity, they don't have the history and the action to see how important those issues are for us. Have a good day, all, and
Thanks a lot. Bye, Prietto. We are going back by the problem with the internet, so we continue with the presentation. The last presentation is with Fernanda Feil. She's a professor in the Graduate Department and Fluminense Federal University. As economist and consultant, she specializes in financial systems, sustainable system, economic development, and macroeconomic analysis. So, thanks, Fernanda, and go ahead with your presentation.
Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to congratulate the organizers of this event. It's a brilliant event. As Rogerio says, as Eduardo say, that it's very important that we, as South countries and Latin countries, you've got to speak up because I don't understand. Okay, do you prefer if I stand? If I sit down? Okay. I just don't like the sitting when I talk, that's why I'd rather be sitting. And also in the next section we'll be talking about, but couldn't we move a little bit?
Yeah. Si cubre ronda, hay ahora consigo
No. So in the next session we'll be talking about creating a center, a sustainable finance center for the Latin America. And as CEFIS, as the Brazilian Sustainable Finance Center, we fully support this initiative. We're more than happy to be part of it. And I invite everyone to participate in the next session. Hi, Nicholas. So I'll be talking today about, I was asked to talk about development banks, and when we talk about development banks, we usually go to the national ones or the multilateral development banks. Thank you, SDGs. But given the size and the speed and the amount of the required investment we need, I'll be talking today about the 3 levels of development banks: the multilateral ones at the international level, the national ones, the national level, and the regional ones at the subnational level. And I'll be talking more. No funciona?
No.
No. Yeah? Thank you. First of all, I brought such huge letters into the slides because, you know, as a person with a certain age, I cannot see. So that's why it's so big. But the goal here is to demonstrate how the FIs in all those 3 levels can be integrated and make a change in this. That is perhaps the most challenging time of humankind. Okay, it's we're facing a crisis that we never faced before. Again, it's not just the crisis, it's the timing and the amount of investment and the speed of change and the structural transformation that we have to incur to solve this problem. Yesterday we were talking about being an optimistic, a pessimist, or a realistic. realistically, it's going to be very difficult that we endure this task within the time frame that we have to, and within the current model of production that we are living in. But we still have to try to come up with alternatives and ways that we can go through and emerge from the other side. You're supposed to be here at 9, Margot.
Yes, I'm so sorry.
That's okay. Just to remind you from our discussion last night. I'm sorry to put you on the spot like that. So the thing is that neoliberal financialized way of the mode of dealing with the financial system today is one that looks at the short period, looks at profitable volume, and in the way it's doing, the way it's organized. I'll be going back. The way it's organized, it remains to finance the very harmful environmental sectors that damage our way of life. They are supposed to be phasing down, and because it's very profitable, it's understandable because it's very profitable. That's something that the financial system remains to do. So the idea is the agreements say that not only the financial system has to move towards environmental friendly sectors, but has also to move away from harmful sectors. And in the way it's organized, that's something that's not happening, will not happen soon. That's when development institutions, development financial institutions enter. That's why they are so important, because they can be, it's like a pilot for the system to be moving in this direction. Again, investing in environmental and green sustainable sectors, but also moving away from the brown or the green or the harmful ones. The way we see today, the financial system sees today, and I think Rogerio spoke about that quite well, is that climate risk is currently a fiscal liability, and as such, it is only a risk. Camila was here last night, and she's from Camila, what's her surname?
Grande.
Yeah. And she was talking about the big push. The climate change, it is a challenge, but can also be an opportunity to the countries, especially in the global south, especially in the Latin America region, because we have a potential to change in terms of natural resources. So the idea is that we move away from this neoliberal financialized mode towards a sustainable development convention. What is a sustainable development convention? It's a convention that understands the financial institutions, that understand the economic policies, the macroeconomic policies, and all the state institutions. They have to be working towards the same goal, which is the green sustainable transition, which is changing the structure of the way the production is organized, the way of the consumption is organized. And I do understand that this seems to be a very utopic point, and it is, but it's the only way we can minimize the crisis, the environmental, the climate, and the social crisis that we are facing. So it's a call, especially here, our goal is to talk about the financial system. The financial system is the glue that holds the present intentions, the present investment decisions to the future. Okay, so it is through the financial system as this has to be started, because it has to be so fast, it has to be induced. and it has to be induced by the state. And the institutions that are ready to do those, that are not ready but have the mission to do so, are the development financial institutions. Of course, central banks are central in this process. We also could be talking for longer, maybe, time about the central banks, but you know, it's a kind of a connection between these two major institutions that have to be pushing, have to be leading this transition, coordinated, of course, by the state. So the Sustainable Development Convention emphasizes the state-led coordination, the structural transformation, and especially the public purpose of the finance. So the idea is that we have Brazil, I don't know how many of you know the Brazil financial system, but we do have a multi-level development financial institutions. We have around 23, 24 regional financial institutions, development financial institutions. They're very small. They are nothing like BNDES, of course. They work usually through BNDES, but they're very important. Some of them are very important in the region they operate. So together with those institutions and together with the federal financial institutions, the public development banks, the public banks like Banco do Brasil, Caixa Econômica, we have a system, a sustainable development system. And we are proposing here, and that's the first time I'm presenting this. Where is Iago? Yeah, that's the first time I'm presenting this, so maybe you can tell me what you think. The idea is to integrate the operations of multilateral development banks, the national ones and the regional ones. Why? Because although the climate change is a global problem, it manifests itself in the regional, the local place. So the multilateral development banks, the MDBs, they are the institutions that can capitalize, they can take money, that's not the proper word, but they can transfer money from the global north to the global south. They can mobilize bigger amounts of resources, and they can organize in this system the global policies, the global conventions, like the Paris Agreement, the CDBs, the Biodiversity Convention, and they can translate it into into financial instruments. The National Development Bank, they are the public policy arms of the state. They translate the national policies, the ones that are important to the state, the national level state, the sovereign of the state. What policies are the national states wanting to implement towards a green sustainable transition, one that structurally changes the economy of the region. And at the regional level, they are the ones, those institutions are the ones that are embedded in the territory. They know the potentialities, they know the problems, they are the ones that can offer the proper financial instrument. They can offer aid to make the projects. Eduardo was talking about before the importance of having a pipeline of projects, because it's true. When you work with the development finance, you understand that even though you have the money, you have the grant, the institution is ready to operate, not always you can find projects. And that's where these regional institutions can help. They can aid the project, like what Eduardo was saying they are doing at the multilateral development level. And so what happens is, because they have to be capitalized, those institutions, they can work, they can channel the money from the national development banks, and they can channel the money from the multilateral development banks. So it's a system that works respecting the different policies and politics of each institution, but they work together towards the same goal, towards the goal, the bigger goal of financing, promoting, leading the sustainable transition, the green sustainable transition. It has to be sustainable, it has to be green, but it has to also change the complexity of the economy. I think Eduardo was talking about that as well. So it's good that I'm the last one in this panel because, you know, the other speakers already saying so much. Please, the next one. Trying to be as fast as possible. So those institutions, this group of institutions, this group together, working together along with the central banks, the idea is that they are the ones leading towards a new financial architecture. We do need, I mean, it's almost common sense that we need to reform, to restructure the financial architecture globally. I mean, we have reports over reports talking about this and talking about what we can do, how we can do, and what's the importance to change this financial structure. Everyone understands that the way it is, it's not going to finance the sustainable transition, but we're still doing more of the same. Okay, as I think Rogerio brought here a slide with the evolution of the sustainable finance over the last 10, 15 years, and it is more of the same. There is nothing new. We try to change the way the financial instruments work, and we try to bring these financial instruments, but we still maintain the same logic behind it. Okay, we still have the same forms of warranty, the same way of measuring risk, the same way of measuring value, and that's clearly not working. So what a new financial architecture needs, and that's why the DFIs are so important, that's why the development financial institutions are so important. We have to redefine risk. It's very difficult to assess risk when we don't know what's going to happen forward. We don't have a backwards scenario to understand how the climate change, the environmental harmful situation is going to affect our economy, but we do understand that's going to affect in a way that we never knew before. So we have to integrate those risks into our prudential rules. What that means that when the central banks, when the development financial institutions are setting new rules, they have to understand the materiality of the risk of the climate change risks. Okay, it's not about understanding that it's going to have a flow that's going to affect the economic sectors, but also understanding the economic sectors will affect the financial system. That's the double materiality. We have to redefine value. It's no longer possible for us to remain not assessing the value of the nature to our account system. We need to understand that having the forest has more value than taking it down. So it has to be considered. There are several advancements in this area, but we haven't been able to incorporate it yet. We need innovative instruments. We need to think outside the box. We need to think about new ways of those institutions to operate. Again, that's why DFIs, development financial institutions, are so important, because they are the ones with the mandate, the possibility to do so. Those institutions can make a difference. They can set the new path, and they have to be working alongside with the central banks. The idea that central bank has to work only in an independent way, away from the state mission, it's a new idea. It hasn't been like that since its creation. So it changes alongside with history. It has to change again. we need regulatory reform. That's almost as important as the DFIs working together. We need a new system of reform. We need a new system of understanding what's the importance, how the regulatory system will influence finance. And for instance, I'll bring only one example. We have to penalize brown assets, we have to penalize environmentally harmful assets, and we have to make favor adjustments to not penalize the contrary of penalize to the sustainable ones. We have to push the sustainable finance. Something like that. So it's a set of actions that we need to go towards it. But at the center of this, we have the DFIs are at the center of those changes alongside with central banks. Another point, I think, also when Eduardo was presenting, there was something I was thinking about. The capital is the size of the DFIs matter. Size matters here. Again, Brazil, we have 23, 24 regional financial institutions. They are very small. They have a limited capacity of operating. We cannot say the same about the BNDES, the National Development Bank, the Brazilian National Development Bank. Why? Because BNDES has a history with Brazil, because BNDES has been built since its beginning to make a difference, and today is one of the biggest and more important development banks in the world, but also because BNDES has the ability, has the capacity to invest, to fund, it has the necessary funding. So NDBs, and RDBs, they must be capitalized. They must work with enough money, enough funding to do the change they have to change. And these cannot follow the market logic, because they cannot be, this logic is going to tie their actions. The DFIs must fund new sectors, but they must create new sectors, they must fund innovation, they must fund something that hasn't been done before, so they have to operate it in a new logic. So they working together, transferring money between one and another. China in the 1.3 trillion, the Baku, I don't remember who was talking yesterday about the Baku-Belém roadmap, but China in the 1.3, I think was Iago who was talking about this. Sorry. China in the money required, and a big chunk of it towards this goal. And to conclude the next piece. This change, it's not a technological fix. It's very important. It's not a matter of money. It's not a matter of technology. It's not a matter of operational capacity, but it is a political choice. And that's what we have to start to understand. It's a political shift, and a political shift towards understanding and incorporating the environmental, the climate, and the social aspects into finance. The FIs are at the heart of this transformation, and they are strategic instruments of the state. But the success of this transformation, this path, depends on multi-level coordination, institutional defense, coherence, and financial system that aligns the pace, that's very important, the pace, the scale, and the direction required for this just transition. That's all I have to say. If anyone wants, that's my email address, please feel free to send a message if you want to.
Okay, thanks, Fernanda. I want to invite Eduardo to the board. So this presentation with the Rogerio are a lot of interest with the topic of this workshop. So we open the space to the questions, maybe comments. Sorry, Luis, Leandro, Diego.
The first,
Yeah.
okay, thank you very much for the presentation, very interesting presentation. I would like to hear first from Eduardo. If you could give some figures about what is the share in the portfolio of the banks of the green loans, if you have this figure, and what is more or less the evolution in the last year, and also if you talk about the financial conditions of the programs related to sustainability in terms of, for instance, interest rates and maturities of the loans, and if there is some subsidized interest rate or is market rate, and so on. And for Fernanda, thank you for your presentation. I am just wondering that in your approach, that particularly national development banks are key institutions. But how about the countries that don't have national development bank? That is in most cases of developing countries, in most cases of Latin American economy. Is there any alternative arrangements that can be developed for this case? Or is just the case implement national development bank? That's not easy.
Yeah.
Thank you for the presentations. For Eduardo, I was wondering about what about the results after the projects? What is the continuity? What are the results of the projects you have made till now? And second question, it's about something you said, which is since governments in Latin America change a lot, we cannot have a project for. So maybe some insights about economic planning, and if you think that it could be some possibility, some proposal on economic plan in a supranational agenda about governments in the region. We can create something like that. So we can have projects for several years, and we don't have to depend on the governments in place. For example, in Argentina, everything is changing a lot right now. Everything that was being done is not being done anymore. So if we could save that problem with international institutions. And for Fernanda, maybe I would ask about some examples. What you said about redefined value. Conrado yesterday talked about that. Fiscal accountability. But also I would like to know about these penalties on brown industries. If you have examples of successful penalties and incentives in a way. And in that sense, I was wondering about the promise of that for Latin American or peripheral countries, in the sense that maybe some brown industries generate a lot of inconvenience. So the tension, what do you think about it? Thank you.
So finally, Diego.
Yes, thank you so much for your patience. I have questions about the challenge of building this new financial architecture, and its it's because I'm worried about the, for example, the creations or we move projects and initiatives that realize a new green politics in some cases, but the first of all is that the investments can be rentables, profitable, and well, we can create that, but we need a multilateral conditions that the countries create that political and fiscal conditions to, for example, affect the brown or the sectors with high carbon emissions. But I have the worry about if it's possible to move all that kind of investment that we need to modify the situations about the necessity, the green necessities in the world, and if it's possible, yes, do some kinds of projects in different ways, but the profits gains continue concentrate in the activities that contaminate more and affect more. And so I think that the new financial architecture requires the support of the countries, the biggest countries in the world, and I don't know, and that is the question is, what kind of bias or what where is the steps, possible steps that the multilateral sectors or organizations can develop to advance in that situation. My concern is it's about the profit because the private capital don't advance without that profit. So I have that big questions. Diego. Thank you.
Rolando?
Yeah. Just building on Diego's question, very shortly, I wanted to ask both of you, who are our allies in today's world economic system to build such multi-level supranational finance new architecture? That's the question.
Okay.
What's your name, sir?
My name is Fernanda. That's it. I'm from Argentina.
Okay. We have the last question. Iago?
Simple question to Fernanda. It's all funding of the banks. Because I'm thinking, for example, the BNDES, the Brazilian Development Bank, the funding from the treasury, from the public budget, it's been decreasing as the last years, especially after Bolsonaro and Temer, and you have new tools like this treasury, letra de crédito de desenvolvimento, and these bonds. And I want to ask you, what do you think about this mechanism from the market, the funding? This is it's an alternative, or we need to recover the participation of the state, of the public budget in these banks. And even multilateral development banks can be an alternative. Like Yannis Affairs has a proposal about the central banks of the global north to print money actually and finance it. It's not an easy task, but I think we have to begin to speak about these things, to strengthen these debates, you know, because I have read some articles that you wrote together with Carmen about this capture that the definition of the market, the capital markets are doing to the development banks. So this kind of paper like the letra de crédito de desenvolvimento, it's some type of this or no? It's a good way. This is the question. Sorry for that.
Great, thanks. Fernanda or Eduardo?
Please.
Thank you. I'll be starting with Luis' questions, because it's a great question, actually. First of all, I think in the countries that don't have national development banks, which are the most, we have to strengthen the actions of multilateral development banks. And we have to start thinking about creating the structure, the institutionalization for them to have a financial institutions that is aligned with the goals, with the missions, with the necessity of a new way of financial system work. Of course, that requires money, requires political intention, but we're talking about ideal here, and I think that's the idea. Why this doesn't happen? I think multilateral development institutions have to be working there. The point is, the IDB doesn't work as well in Brazil as the BNDES does, for instance. So it's better to have a national one, but it's true, it's an alternative. So it's true, we can build this system with what we have and then start to strengthen the system from within afterwards. It's a process, I think, also. It's not actually a step by step, it's also doing a kind of together, because, you know, it's going to happen as it goes. We don't know we still don't know what is necessary to face the climate change, to finance the green sustainable transition. So it's kind of doing by learning kind of system. Leandro, I think redefining value is key here. For instance, there has been for a long time the discussion about creating a new environmental account that it works alongside with GDP. So you understand we kind of value capital, we value nature, we value things that we don't currently, water. There is a great example that it's been often given by orthodox economists in Brazil, very known ones, that, for instance, if you have clean water to drink from the lake, there is no economic value in that. And if you polluted this clean water and you started to bottle clean water, to cleanse your water, in terms of well-being, you're going to be worse because you're not going to have access to water. But in terms of GDP, you're going to be better off because you started to putting value to what was nothing, that was zero before. So we do need a new form of value in nature. That's essential if we want to talk about it. And when you're talking about the brown industry, that's actually, in my view, the key issue. It's like when we're talking about the yellow vests in Paris. Is that the right translation? Coletes amarelas, yellow vests. Before the pandemic, that France was trying to reduce fossil fuel industry, and you say the argument is the discussion behind is thinking about the future, we're thinking about decreasing fossil fuel. The guy who's working there, the yellow vest, they were saying, "But I don't care about what's going to happen 10, 20 years from now. I care that I have to put dinner on my table tonight." So when you're talking about moving away from brown industries, moving towards a green sustainable transition, you need a new innovation. You need a new way of doing things. You need to have the state operating in a different way, because I must, this labor have to be relocated into new industries, into green industry. That takes time, takes education, and not all of them will be able, you're going to be able to relocate it. Some of them, they will not find work ever again. So I need a social state behind it. You know, I need a state that is going to, social welfare. We have to rebrand the welfare state, and the welfare state has to be behind it. Otherwise, it's not going to happen. It's not because of what I want. It's because it is necessary for the green sustainable transition, because as you say, as you so well pointed out, many developed countries, even in the developed ones, we need the brown industry. That's how our economy is based. So we need to, in order to move away, we need a massive change, and that has to be done with the state, by the state, led by the state, with the private sector. When we're talking about the state, it doesn't mean the private sector, it hasn't come around. I'm not talking about Soviet Union here. I'm talking about, you know, having to make a change towards a world that we're going to be able to live. Diego wrote about the new financial architecture, and you're right, because we're talking about development banks. Before being development, they are financial institutions, and as such, they need to have profitable projects. And that's why finance is not going to solve everything. We have to have the state, we have to have the fiscal policy. And Conrado is working on that. Conrado is working on the importance of a new way of not only measuring, but accounting the investment. And that's why his work is so important, because it's a way to understand that fiscal policy has to be in our benefit, in benefit of the new ways of doing things and not the other way around. Okay, it's about a fiscal equilibrium. Of course it is. No one is going to say that we have to spend, you know, money we don't have, but it's all designed. The way the system is all designed for us to understand that public investment is not worth it. And Conrado, again, he's going to be able to explain this much better than me, because I listen to what he has to say, but you know, the way it is, the investment is not computed into the revenue afterwards, what it comes from that. So we need a new way of accounting, we need a new way of valuing. You know, he also go back to the same problems. And the bancarization, turning the projects more, I don't know how to say that in English, but bancarizados. Thank you. That is also a main issue, and that's why the FIs are so important, because they cannot be, you know, they don't need to be as fast and as profitable as in the private market. You know, we can have patient capital, and we can wait longer a little bit. That's the whole idea of a development financial institution. So that's why they are key to this project. They are key to this transition. Who are the allies? I have to go down. Who are the allies? I don't know. I do not know. I think the academic sector, we have to start pushing. We have those discussions in many multilateral institutions. We have the IDB talking about that, even the World Bank talking about that. We have the CASI working up, CASI, AFD, we have to start pushing these ideas, and that's how we're going to do it. Please, if you do have the answer, I would love to know what the major allies is, and also the UN, the conventions. But above all, I think the reality, the change we have to face, it's upon us, and we are already, climate change is not something from the future, it's already here. So maybe when things have to get a little bit worse, and then we understand it's going to be better. I particularly don't believe in that. That's my hope, I must say. And Iago, your question, I completely agree. I think the central bank has to print money. The famous doesn't say in these terms. I understand it changes the wording, so it doesn't shock so much, the readers. But what he's saying last instance, the way I understand, is central banks from the global north, they have to print money in order to fund this transition. And I do believe in something like that. Of course, not printing by printing, you need conditionalities, you need to direct this money, but I'm 100% behind the famous idea of central banking acting towards capitalizing those institutions. I'm very sorry.
Well, thank you. Well, thank you. We're very aligned in the way I just quickly respond. In terms of share of sustainable projects, I don't want to claim that that we finance sustainable project because it's very hard for a project to be really sustainable.
Yeah.
But the last year we make a sustainability report, and around 80 to 90% of the projects that we finance were aligned with sustainability. We include into the budgets of the project a lot of money in terms of adaptation, and also we gather information about social sustainability, environmental sustainability. So we put a lot of measures to support the environment with money, because one of the issues we see in the project is that you can prepare a very beautiful document, but if you don't have the budget, the client won't implement the measure, nature-based solution, adaptation measure, etc. So I would say we have a high amount of project aligned with sustainability, for not to be too arrogant saying these are sustainability project, because also we do many studies during the implementation. So it's very hard to have a perfect project. But most of our portfolio, we can consider this resilient, and it's also because our region, the Central American region, it's under development, so it needs a lot of investment in infrastructure. So we have to do a lot of infrastructure in transportation, water and sanitation, education, health. So what we do into those traditional projects, we transform those projects to include adaptation, more strong adaptation criteria that becomes an increment of investment. Also, we include, for example, we take a lot of opportunity to reduce emissions from those sectors, which also increase the investment. But now we are including more and more strong requirements and measures to protect biodiversity, for example, to protect society. So we have a framework that we use for each project, and so that those projects become aligned with sustainability. We do have some projects that we call transformational, like the Nuclear Lake, because it's dedicated to biodiversity, to reduce contamination, to improve quality of life. But an infrastructure project we transform and to support very aligned what you put there to identify the potential benefits and make investment in those benefits, not just to mitigate the impacts, but to support any benefits that we can see, even in great infrastructure projects. In terms of conditions, I don't have the exact rates, but what I can tell is usually with all resources it's not that conditional. So what we do, concessional, because as you put in your also in the presentation, we need to be capitalized by concessional funding, but aligned with the response also. For example, we get resources from Germany to KfW, we get resources from France to AFD, we get resources from Korea. But to be honest, and with other countries, but to be honest, the resources that they provide are not that concessional, so we cannot trespass to the governments. Any concession that we get, because the banks is not the business to make too much of the profit, right? So we pass the concessionality to the government, but we cannot pass something that we don't have. So few of the funding are really concessional, so that's a big gap that we have there. And what we do is try to support the project with no reimbursable resources, any donors, but still there is a promise from the global north, and that's a promise that is the Paris Agreement, increase financial flow, that we are not, that promise is not being delivered still. Not just for the multilateral banks, but any other channel that I can use to provide concessional fundings or grants. But for example, GCF will give you the loan, and usually the grants, they can is a little bit, you have to present big reports to show the impacts. And that's another thing, right, that the concessional funding or the donors wants to give you, a small piece, and they want a big report because they want to give a small piece to each country. So also transactional costs to support all that is high. In terms of planning, there is a lot of planning, but nothing of the planning is, they don't follow the plan. They do the plan, there's a lot of planning, but they don't follow the plan. For example, in Central America, there are several institutions that gathers all the governments in Central America. They plan, they identify projects, they prioritize projects, but at the end, the national government decide what's the priority in the government. So even the countries has a long-term planning, but they won't follow that plan because the priority are not defined by the needs of the people usually, but are defined for sometimes for political reasons, right? So it's a super hard. I don't have an answer how to solve that. Maybe in other more developed countries, they have a planning that it doesn't matter the government, but they won't follow the plan. So you know how much money you need, what projects, you have time to prepare projects. So that's why we have developed a model to accelerate the project preparation. Because we have the experience that a big project could take 1 or 2 years to prepare, to do feasibility studies, budget, etc. But if you start the preparation of a project, it takes 2 years, and then you present to the government, it might not be the priority. in that moment. So, and then if you want to keep those studies and say, let's present it to the next government, those studies won't be updated. You need to be updated. You need to invest more to take the study. So it's quite challenging. So that's why we prepare a model to because that's an advantage of MDB that has like a direct link with the countries. So we also know a lot of the project that we do. So we can move forward to approval with the more early stage of maturity. And we don't need to go to the full final design, but has some feasibility study. So we move forward to approval and the project start. Once start, it's done. The problem in also we have a lot of times where you approve the project as a bank, but the Congress of the government do not approve the project.
But do you need the Congress to approve?
No, the first step is yes, I mean, you approve the project as a bank and then you sign a contract, but the contract has to be approved by the Congress. So sometimes we approve a lot of big, interesting projects, but again, if you change, okay, I have to finish. Who are the allies? It's a good question. Thank you.
Thanks for Eduardo and Fernanda and for the question. So let's do the coffee break, but when return in 20 minutes, we separate young scholars to discuss the agenda and maintain the experts and speakers to discuss about the network of the financial, sustainable finance in Latin America. So thanks.
Voy a robar the slide.
No, no, no.